cream, cookies, donuts, muffins. These are a lot of things that people know as sugar spikers, but there's some other ones as well that might not be so obvious. So higher blood sugar levels or blood glucose levels, they also can cause recurring sugar-related skin problems. Doesn't mean that everybody with acne or everybody with aging skin has blood sugar issues. That's a very, very drastic oversimplification. But it is really important to know that if you're constantly spiking and crashing your blood sugar, this can lead to acne and this can affect your gut. Also, I'm going to talk about this in my next gut health webinar, whenever we schedule that one. Anything that creates dysbiosis in the gut. So anything that feeds a lot of the bad guys, the pathogenic bacteria, and allows them to overtake the good guys, the beneficial bacteria, those things can cause dysbiosis in the gut. And when you have too many pathogens running around, it shows up on your skin. So that shows up in the form of acne when you're younger, prematurely aging skin when you're older. High blood sugar levels simply means, so what's the correlation here? The simple scientific explanation is it's just higher levels of certain hormones. So one of them is IGF-1. So IGF-1 predisposes some people to acne. Some of you might know, you can guess in the comments, which food is known to promote IGF-1 the most. It's an animal product. I'll give you a hint. So foods that have a lot of IGF-1, they cause this, this increase. They can also cause collagen damage. So it's dairy products. Dairy products are number one. That is why a lot of people see their acne go into remission once they cut dairy from their diet. For some people, it's as simple as that one thing. And a lot of people eat foods that are both high in dairy products and sugar. So things like ice cream, for example, that's a really popular dessert, or a lot of baked goods that actually have a lot of milk that you wouldn't even necessarily know. Sweet cheesecakes, things like that. That is something that's very likely to cause acne in a sensitive individual without a lot of diversity in their microbiome. So these blood sugar levels, they actually physically damage the collagen through a process known as glycation. And this produces advanced glycation end products, AKA, really fitting word, AGEs, ages. The proteins in the skin that become most impacted by these spikes in blood sugar are your collagen and your elastin. So basically, to summarize, the fibers cross-link, they become more brittle and less resilient. You want your skin to move and have a lot of resilience. That's what young skin kind of is. You don't want it to look dry and not able to move without kind of crinkling. So when we get older too, it becomes more difficult to repair this tissue, and it's harder to repair collagen that's been glycated, that's already caused sagging and wrinkling. So while we definitely can turn it around, prevention is a little bit easier, but I'm going to talk about how to both prevent and how to make some changes as well. So refined carbohydrates, things like bread products, pasta, a lot of the gluten products, those are refined carbohydrates. Those, in addition to added sugars, that is a blood sugar nightmare. It is quickly absorbed in the bloodstream, and those are your most prevalent sugar spikers that everyone talks about. So in order to protect everyone's collagen, it's really, really important to reduce the sugar spikes. So they've done some studies, and you won't see results from this right away, but if you can be patient over a 4-month period, you can reduce this glycation of your collagen by 25%, which is actually quite a bit. But like anything, I tell people this on nutrition programs, on gut health programs, I tell the patients getting ready for their treatment, you want to see me at least 3 to 6 months out from your treatment as soon as you book, because the longer we can do these things, the better we can improve your gut health, your ability to eat these foods when they do come, into your line of vision. You don't have to eat perfect to be healthy, and you don't have to completely avoid blood sugar spikes in order to have good collagen levels and to be healthy. But it does take some time. You got to improve your gut bacteria by eating a diet full of plant-rich, varied foods, some fermented foods in there. You have to stay very, very hydrated. You have to avoid a lot of genetically modified foods and other tips that I'm going to sum up in the gut health webinar, but all relevant here. And fiber. Gut bacteria love fiber. There's no topic in nutrition that we can talk about without bringing it back to the gut bacteria. And in this case, for blood sugar, fiber is one of the main nutrients that actually stabilize your blood sugar, but also fiber is the main food for your good gut bacteria. So it's a beautiful synergistic relationship that eventually after a 4 to 12 month window of you really being diligent about your diet will allow you to glow from the inside out and to feel amazing. I know a lot of people, some of them actually here attending this webinar, who I have seen transform by changing their diet, by incorporating more fiber rich foods, more superfoods, more healthy plant forward foods, and they look and feel like different people. Their brain works different. And I'll explain why that is as well. So when you're eating something a little bit more high glycemic, you can also add a dose of protein or fat, and that will slow down the glucose release. But there's not much you can do if you want to eat a diet really, really high in fatty foods, because this causes the fat particles to actually build up inside our cells. When this happens, the fat particles interfere with insulin's ability to move sugar out from the bloodstream into the cells. So you end up with it in the bloodstream, and what is that? High blood sugar, right? So it's really the fat that is actually the cause of this. So you can avoid all of the sugars and all the fatty foods in the world, but it's not actually going to make a difference if you're still on a really, really high fat diet. It just means that you won't have the symptoms. So for example, I've heard of people saying, okay, I have type 2 diabetes. I'm thinking about following a ketogenic diet, and that will reverse my diabetes. I'll get off my medication. And they're not wrong about getting off their medication and not needing, for example, insulin or metformin, but they would actually fail an oral glucose tolerance test, which is how we test if someone's actually diabetic. They would fail it miserably, meaning they're more diabetic than ever. They've just completely eliminated the sugars that can cause their blood sugar to spike. But if they were to just go off on a bender one day and eat a box of donuts, that person would be in very, very serious trouble because they didn't address the root cause. The root cause has to be addressed by avoiding these super high fat foods. If you look at the bottom photo, there's some treats there like the French fries, the burger, the muffin, the donut. A lot of people look at those foods and they think, oh, carbs. I got to avoid carbs. Carbs are really bad. Those are actually foods that contain more fat than carbs in most cases. There's a lot of fat. There's a lot of oils and things going into the baked goods. There's a lot of fat in the meat. There's a lot of fat in those French fries. So what people think is perhaps a carbohydrate rich food might actually be higher in fat. And that's the case with a lot of baked goods, a lot of junk food, a lot of bags of chips, things like that. And these actually wreck your blood sugar. So I am an advocate for anyone who is diagnosed with type 2 diabetes to follow the only diet that is evidence-based to actually help turn that around. You don't have to follow it forever. I know some people are like, I'm not going to be a vegan. And it's up to you. You can be healthy on a vegan diet. I'm doing it. You can be healthy on an omnivore diet. You cannot be healthy on a carnivore diet. I don't care what anybody on Instagram says. That goes against all of the entire body of nutrition research. Nutrition research isn't perfect, but there is such a thing as scientific consensus. And scientific consensus and longitudinal studies give us a really good glimpse at what is good for people. So we need fiber, we need different plant foods, we need diversity to feed our gut bacteria. These carnivore diets, they work because people on these diets, they have very, very limited gut bacteria through whatever it may be, antibiotics, a lot of pharmaceuticals in their life, really, really high stress lifestyle, not getting a good microbiome when they were born, maybe a C-section baby followed by bottle feeding. So all of these things can contribute to somebody as they get older and go, have more antibiotics and maybe make less and less optimal choices as they age, not be able to break down plant foods very well. And that's why we have to rebuild the microbiome, which is very, very, very important. But for people who have type 2 diabetes and they want to turn it around quickly, I've seen people turn it around in a month and get off metformin and get off some of these pharmaceuticals they thought that they were going to be on for the rest of their lives, just following a plant-based diet. And some of them maintain it for life, some of them don't, but cutting out all of the super fatty foods in the short term, as well as the blood sugar spikers, that makes a really, really big difference. And people feel better very, very, very quickly, sometimes miraculously quick. So I'm a big advocate of that diet. There are a lot of studies on this as well. It isn't just one. And there's a really, really good book, Mastering Diabetes. It's one of my favorites. So if anyone on this call has been diagnosed with diabetes, or you know somebody who has, and they want to make some changes in their life, that book is kind of the main guide, I would say, out there in the field of nutrition that actually tells people how to reverse their condition. There's a lot of diabetes diets out there that tell people how to manage their condition for sure. So, you just avoid all the blood sugar spikers, you avoid the cookies, the sugar. The blame is always on the sugar. And refined sugar is far from a superfood, that's for sure. but it is not the cause of diabetes. There's a reason your body isn't able to utilize that sugar to convert it from glucose into glycogen and send it to your muscles, send it to your brain, and be able to use it. The human body and the brain in particular runs on glycogen. We're glycogen fueled beings. We're carb-based beings. Doesn't mean we can't run on fat. The human body is so incredible that it can fat adapt and it can run on fat as well. What it cannot run on is high fat and high carb. You got to make a choice. You can't do both of those. So people have to figure out what's going to work for them, what diet is more realistic to maintain long-term. Low carb is a difficult diet to maintain. That's just one of my favorite books with really good evidence-based information on how to make major changes and actually reverse type 2 diabetes and also manage type 1 diabetes to keep it under control. It's also good for anyone who is potentially dealing with pre-diabetes, blood sugar issues. These are the diets that cause people to be hangry. So this is from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, awesome website. But if you have pre-diabetes, or even if you have really poor blood sugar, poor insulin control, what's happening is you're going to get hangry. How many people on this call have ever gotten hangry? I know I used to get really hangry, even in the earlier years of my plant-based diet. It got a lot better, but I was still eating a lot of junk food. I think if you're still eating, even on a plant-based diet, a lot of the really processed burgers, you know which ones, a lot of chips, a lot of fries, things like that, that's still not, first of all, it's not a microbiome supporting diet, but it's also not a blood sugar supporting diet at all. So these are the things that will help you feel less hangry. Eat more plants. That makes you feel full from the fiber, and it also gets more micronutrients in, more variety. Limit the high fat foods. So don't be drizzling oil over everything you eat. You want to keep oils to a minimum, and that's really important. And for oils, I tend to just stick to olive oil, first cold pressed. The first cold pressed means it's pure olive oil, which means it won't be contaminated. Over 84%, I believe was the statistic, of olive oils on the market are fraudulent. So you really want to look for a brand that you trust and look for the words first cold pressed to make sure. That's what I do. So not too much oil, limit the really high fatty foods, eat foods that are lower on the glycemic index. So maybe avoid the white potatoes if you're worried about your blood sugar, but have more sweet potatoes, and eat about 40 grams of fiber a day. This is actually probably the hardest one on that list because the average American is getting 15 grams a day, 15, not even half. So when you consider that, we kind of have an epidemic of microbiome starvation because that fiber is also feeding your gut bacteria. I know I harp on about gut bacteria a lot, but it's the most important thing. It determines how healthy you are. And that's also why there's so many arguments about what's the best diet. This diet's the best. This blue zone ate this way. These people ate this way. There isn't really a consensus, but the consensus is the individuals that are the healthiest, they have the most diverse microbiome, which comes from a really good quality diet. That should also come from our soil. There should be a lot of amazing nutrients in the soil, and they're not really there anymore. So we have to support our microbiome in other ways. We have to avoid GMOs, glyphosate, and we have to eat fiber. 40 grams a day is a great way to tackle diabetes, being hangry, and high blood sugar. Then to boost your collagen, keep the focus on whole foods, not too many processed foods. But there's a difference between minimally processed, something like, for example, an organic tofu or some almond flour crackers. Those might be minimally processed foods. And then there's highly processed foods. So certain types of chips, junk foods, a lot of processed meats, things that don't look like anything found in nature that are highly processed. Those are not good for your gut bacteria. They're not good for your collagen. Then you want to eat more fruit and vegetables. I know it's an obvious one, but a lot of people simply don't get enough. They actually look at what they're eating in a day, and there really isn't a lot of fresh raw food in there. So I'm a big advocate of superfoods, of raw dehydrated green powders that I'm drinking all the time, because that's the easiest way for people, no matter how busy they are, to add in really good organic raw fruit and vegetables. And that also will nourish the microbiome. Even better if they have fiber in them, and eating foods naturally high in fiber, which are plants. Then staying hydrated, super important, and I'll cover that too. And you can also choose foods that boost your collagen. You will save a lot of money on beauty treatments, on expensive skincare products. The most important place to invest is what's going into your internal terrain, what's feeding your microbiome. So in addition to a really good diet, these are the products that I use for collagen support. And also there's only 1 gram of sugar in the dark berry. So that's really good for blood sugar as well. When you purchase supplements, these are the ones that I use because I vetted the company and I trust them. You always want to choose a company that has a COA for every product. If you have questions about what that is, I did a supplement science webinar a couple months ago that's on YouTube that you can review there. And I explain how to choose a good company. So you want to ask for a certificate of analysis. You want to see the heavy metals in there. You want to make sure there's no other sneaky ingredients. They're tested for purity. They are what they say they are. In my sleep webinar, I talked about how most melatonin supplements on the market, ordered off Amazon for the sake of this study, didn't even come within 10% of the listed dose of melatonin on the supplement. So you got to be really, really careful with companies and go for the ones that will share their certificate of analysis. And if they won't share it with you, it's probably not a really good company, or they're not doing their due diligence themselves. Next one is blood sugar and your brain. So you want to keep blood sugar low, not only so that you age well and your skin's has a little bit more collagen and elastin, but also to retain your memory. So there's a lot of evidence that links elevated blood sugar to memory problems. I just included a few studies here, but there are more, and they talk about how the more your blood sugar is spiking and crashing. There's even a move to reclassify dementia and Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes. That's how strong this link is. So you guys can just Google after this if you're interested in this topic, type 3 diabetes. And it shows how it directly impacts the brain and how keeping your glucose levels somewhat stable are very, very, very important for the aging process as well. This study here took 141 older healthy people, and they had to read back a list of 15 words and repeat as many as they could remember. And between A1C, so like a blood test basically that looks at their blood sugar level, it goes from 5% up to just 5.6%. They were recalling fewer words. So a lot of people are higher than that. In diabetic, it actually affects your cognitive function, your ability to think, your ability to remember. So this is really, really serious. Our diet affects every aspect of who we are. Our immune system is our gut bacteria. Our serotonin production, how happy we are, is our gut bacteria. Our vagus nerve, the gut-brain connection. And now we also know that our memory, our neurofunction, our neuroplasticity, our ability to learn and recall is affected by a really poor diet that is constantly spiking and crashing your blood sugar. It actually leads to decreased blood and nutrient flow to your brain cells. So a blood sugar spiking diet is a brain depletion diet. You are not nourishing your brain, you are depleting it. And as you get older, it's very, very, very important to continue to nourish your brain. And I'm going to give you some tips about how to do that as well. But the hippocampus, we need that part of the brain for memory, for recall. If you want to learn a new skill, it's why people who speak multiple languages or play instruments, they tend to have slower aging brains because they're constantly using these skills, and that creates neuroplasticity. But diet is extremely, extremely important. So why not do both? Why not pick up a skill like an instrument or learn a language and also really take care of your brain health from the inside? When you make a decision, you need glucose in your hippocampus. When the glucose levels in your body rise, it can actually lead to a disruption of this transportation through the blood-brain barrier. So what happens, it's difficult to get the glucose there. And that's the scientific explanation of why people get quote unquote brain fog, where you just feel like there's a little bit of a shield over you and you don't really remember things, you don't recall so clearly. And everybody knows, even if you're not anywhere near pre-diabetic, if you're a healthy individual and you maybe eat a lot of junk food, maybe you go and eat a bunch of cake or some cookies or some muffins, how do you feel afterwards, right? Like what's happening in your brain? How are you feeling? How quickly are you able to think and recall? Most people are slowed down a little bit. The better your gut bacteria is, the more resilient you are to this, absolutely. But nobody is immune to this, that's for sure. The foods we eat on a regular basis, they lead to epigenetic changes that accelerate the aging process, both in our bodies and our brains. So epigenetic changes, the study of epigenetics is kind of called the light switch of DNA expression. So that means that there are certain genes that we turn on and off like a light switch. So if you're constantly accelerating your blood sugar and it's crashing, then what happens is, unfortunately, certain genes will switch on for certain conditions. So diabetes might run in somebody's family, for example, but what you really look at, and studies have found, is that actually it is the diet running in the family. And when somebody else of a second or third generation makes a really drastic change and doesn't eat that way, these conditions will reverse. Neuroplasticity, as I mentioned, this is the ability to change and reorganize the neural networks in the brain. So this, of course, is related to learning a skill like a language or an instrument, but neuroplasticity also occurs with any behavior we repeatedly do. So let's say whenever you're stressed, your go-to is, I'm just going to go to the kitchen and have a piece of chocolate. You have created this neuroplasticity, these dendrites, these brain waves telling you, okay, this is how we deal with this problem. We're a little bit stressed. We don't feel good. We go for sugar. We go for this comfort. Whatever it is. Some people pick up their phone and start scrolling. You train your brain. Your brain will do whatever you repeatedly train it to do, which is why understanding neuroplasticity is really important. And that's why it's really hard to make changes in the short term. When I'm helping people change, as much as I'd love to tell them, throw all this other stuff out the window, and just focus on really healthy diet, do everything perfect. It's not realistic. Your brain is so programmed to do things exactly the way it's always done things that you have to make small changes one at a time. Maybe first you add in a green juice in the morning. Then maybe after that, you add in making sure you drink enough water in the day. Maybe the next week you add in going to bed at the same time every single night. And these things slowly make changes. Maybe the next week you add in cutting coffee from your diet. Coffee, believe it or not, is one of the worst foods for blood sugar. So if you're constantly getting hangry, not feeling good, did you start your day off with a fresh green juice? Or did you start your day off with a blood sugar spiking coffee? These things have consequences. One of the quickest ways I see otherwise healthy women destroy their hormones really, really quickly is to decide to intermittent fast till about 2 p.m. in the afternoon and chug coffee all morning instead. They end up starving. They usually don't make a very good choice for their first meal. And female hormones are super sensitive because females of reproductive age, menopausal women actually can get away with this a lot more, but women of reproductive age, their bodies, when they're finding all this stress in their internal environment and external environment, are programmed to shut off fertility. And something as simple as drinking coffee all day and skipping breakfast can put your body in that fight or flight fear-based state where it's saying, okay, it's not safe. And there's also the effects on your blood sugar as well, and the effects on your brain. One thing you can do to have better blood sugar control, you can pair your high carb foods with some healthy fats. So this is a nice like quinoa bowl here, and that might look like a weird combo, but some avocado in there and low sugar blueberries. You also want to eat your food in this order. Number one, your greens and your veggies. And also, when you cook food, all of the enzymes disappear from the food if you cook it for a long time at a high temperature. The lower temperature you cook your food, the slower you cook it for and the less time, the more enzymes are going to remain in your food. So if you know that what you're eating is a pretty cooked meal, it's a really good idea to have something raw with your meal first. Ideally, a salad would be amazing, but if you don't have time for that, have some cucumber slices while you cook, have some, maybe munch on romaine lettuce, some slices of pepper, but try to have something raw. Or for me, I do raw dehydrated greens. I add water. That's a great way to make sure that I always have enzymes with my cooked food. So first your greens and veggies, ideally raw, then your protein and fats. You want to have those second, and third, your carbohydrates. So if on a plate you had a bunch of greens, then you had your chickpeas, and then you had your rice. You would want to eat them in the order of first the greens and veggies, then your chickpeas, then the rice last. And that is the best combination for more stable blood sugar. If you eat the rice first and try and save your protein and fat for last, not ideal for your blood sugar, but always have your greens and your raw foods first. Then hydration. Super simple, but you would be shocked how many people are walking around in society chronically dehydrated. So many people actually have major health conditions that stem entirely from dehydration. And they think it's way more complicated than that, because it becomes more complicated when the body is constantly in a dehydrated state. Of course, you're way more likely to succumb to all kinds of different health conditions, and your gut bacteria need hydration as well. You need hydration to move food through your body, to avoid constipation, to move food through your bowels. To detox, the easiest way to detox is to drink water and pee it out or sweat it out. So you have to make sure that you have adequate water in the body in order to be able to do that. If you're someone who uses saunas a lot, which is amazing for health, or if you're someone who lives in a tropical climate, sweating all the time, or someone who works out a lot, just drinking a lot of water might not be enough. You actually need to make sure you're getting your electrolytes in. So you might actually want to add a little bit of salt to your routine first. And I know everybody really fears salt, but if you're sweating a lot and if you're even a little bit dehydrated, a lot of people have greater electrolyte needs because of all the stresses in the world. That water will just be going through you. You'll just be peeing it out and you won't really feel a lot more hydrated. So you can take a pinch of sea salt before you drink your water, dissolve it in the mouth. You can use a little bit of water. It doesn't have to be dry, but it doesn't really work if you put it in the water. The same way it doesn't work if you load it up in your food. So dissolve the salts, like a good quality Celtic or Himalayan sea salt, dissolve it in your mouth, then drink your water afterwards. Do that a couple times a day when you're dehydrated. This gets rid of people's headaches. This gets rid of people's constipation. This gets rid of a lot of health problems because people are simply dehydrated. Even a lot of women struggling to breastfeed and to produce enough milk, believe it or not, even though they're drinking water, a lot of them are chronically dehydrated, and the salt trick actually helps pull them out of it. So pretty interesting what the body will do when you just give it the right tools. Other things as well, let's say you're older and you know that, okay, maybe your neuroplasticity isn't where you want. Maybe you've been having a really high blood sugar diet your entire life and you want to stabilize things a little bit more. Change your diet now and also do things to strengthen your brain. So you can start a new activity that you find both challenging and interesting. But it's really important that it's both of those things. If it's too easy, you're not really stimulating your brain. You're not creating those new neural pathways, these new dendrites. And if it's not interesting, you're not going to stick with it. You're going to get really bored. So you have to find something you like, maybe a language you always wanted to learn, any sort of skill you want to pick up. Maybe you learn how to play chess, something like that, that will stimulate your brain, that will challenge you just enough. If it's too challenging, you might also quit. So find the right balance and really push yourself and practice or engage as often as you can. It really works best for neuroplasticity to do things at the same time every day. Human beings thrive on consistency. So if we actually eat at the same time every day, our gut bacteria are linked to our circadian rhythm. So if we're eating at the same time and sleeping at the same time, that's the best for our gut bacteria, and therefore it's the best for our brain. Also, if you think positively about the activity, instead of being like, oh my gosh, why did I buy this stupid guitar? I don't want to learn how to play this. That's not really the best for your neuroplastic changes. You want to think positively about it. Even if you force it at first, your brain actually doesn't know the difference. You just create those neural pathways of positive thought about the guitar, positive thoughts. And also exercising regularly. So important to get blood flow to your brain and through your body. You want to exercise and move your body. You want to eat healthy and you want to engage with other people. Omega-3s as well, great for brain aging, and chia pudding, such a good snack. I absolutely love this. It's one of my favorite ways to start the day. Our brains are over half fat. So we need healthy fats in order to support our brain. So you need them for good cell membrane health, blood flow, tissue growth. These are all important things when you're trying to learn a new skill and to slow down the aging of your brain. If you do not have enough omegas in your diet, if you're not getting enough healthy fats, then your neurotransmitters, where you're trying to learn something new or create new habits or make healthier nutrition choices, it will be more difficult for you. So support your body with really good, healthy omega-3s. These are different sources. I love to supplement with chlorella and spirulina. If you don't know what those are, they are blue-green algae. Just be very mindful of the company you get it from. You want to make sure they have a COA, a certificate of analysis. That's why I get all my stuff from the same place. I want to see that certificate of analysis. So chlorella, spirulina, these are algae that are super high in protein and they're really good sources of omega-3. They're awesome pre or post workouts because the antioxidant content is really good for post workout as well. Seaweeds as well. That's what the fish eat to get their omega. So seaweed snacks are awesome. Flax, hemp, chia, walnuts, Brussels sprouts, believe it or not. Avocado, of course, kidney beans, mangoes, fatty fish. But with fish, you always want to be careful because there's a lot of mercury, there's a lot of PCB, xenoestrogens, a lot of contaminants in the water table. So you really want to be careful not to overdo it. Then for learning strategies, first you need to nourish your brain with healthy omegas. And then to create more neuroplasticity, you can do short bouts of intense learning. So focus on something, learn it really clearly, and however long you think you can pay attention for, push it by 5 minutes. So let's say you have a 10-minute attention span. I hope not, because that's not very much, but let's say that's your attention span before you need to scroll Instagram or need to turn on the TV or change activities. Say, okay, I'm going to pay attention to something for 15 minutes. And then the next day, 20. And you just slowly create more plasticity in your brain. You incrementally extend your focus, and your brain will start to learn that it can focus a little bit longer, a little bit longer. If you're trying to learn a language for the first time and you know you're really bad at studying and you're really bad at learning, don't sign up for a 3-hour class. An immersion. Don't do something like that. That's not going to be the best thing for your brain. If you're somebody who's already used to 3-hour-long university lectures and that's easy for you, dive in, push yourself further. But you have to be honest with yourself when you're trying to retrain your brain and you're trying to heal and age slower. Because if you do too much at once, you're not going to make it. You need to be honest with yourself and understand that small changes add up really, really, really quickly to positive changes. So do your intense focus, your high attention as long as you can. And after you're done learning, relaxation. Believe it or not, this cements the concepts in your brain. So after this webinar, it's, going to be like 9 p.m. Eastern, get ready for bed, go relax, go chill, go to bed early, do a 20-minute meditation, just do something where you deeply relax and it will actually cement things in your brain. If you start scrolling Instagram, that I know might feel relaxing because it shuts off your brain, it's not relaxing. That will not help you cement your learning. Deep sleep afterwards absolutely will. So it's a good thing we're learning at night. Then, of course, exercise. I know it's super overplayed. Everybody talks about exercise, but it cannot be understated how important it is. You really, really need this. Of course, you can't out-exercise a really bad diet, but we need to be moving our bodies. We need to have that oxygen pumping. We need to support our brain. We need to have good blood flow. And also it's really important for blood sugar and for the aging process. People who exercise regularly, people who are always, doing yoga, going to the gym in a healthy way, not overdoing it at the gym, but in a healthy way, moving their bodies constantly. How do they look, right? How do they feel? How do they age? A lot better. A lifetime of regular aging slows down, a lifetime of regular exercise slows down aging. The research on that is really, really, really clear, but it was pretty drastic. So older adults who exercise regularly seem to have, on a metabolic and internal level, they defied the aging process. They have the immune systems, the muscle mass, and the cholesterol levels of a much, much, much younger person. So maybe you still have some wrinkles on your face, but who cares if you're feeling amazing? This is the most important thing, is for your brain to function properly, for your gut bacteria to function properly. So you want to age as slow as possible, and you want to support your gut bacteria and your blood sugar, and exercise plays a huge role in this. Unfortunately, the Harvard alumni study found that less than half of adults over 65 do enough to stay healthy, and more than half also have at least 2 diseases. If you exercise regularly, you can gain about 2 hours of life for every hour of exercise. And this is also so good for your blood sugar. So it's all connected, but that doesn't apply if you exercise once for 2 hours, like once a month. You have to actually do it regularly. And by regularly, it's like at least 5 days a week, maybe 4 days a week, but a good amount of exercise. It doesn't work if you just do it once in a while, but that's what the study found. You get about 2 hours more life for 1 hour of exercise, as long as you make the commitment to doing it most days. Also, overeating. This not only affects your gut bacteria, because usually when people are overeating, it's not always the healthiest foods, because healthy fiber-rich foods, they fill you up pretty quick. So you're feeding your bad bacteria, and you're also spiking your blood sugar quite a bit. So you can do some fasting once a month, skip a day of eating. You can do some green juice fasting. I don't really recommend fruit juice fasting because it spikes your blood sugar. You remove the fiber from the fruit, which is really protective. So autophagy as well. This is how your body cleans out the old damaged cells. If you've constantly been eating a really unhealthy diet, spiking and crashing your blood sugar over and over again, your body's probably not very good at this process. It's not good at cleaning itself out. You probably have a lot of toxins from your food choices. So when we're in a fasted state, that's good for blood sugar. You don't want to be eating constantly. Don't eat before bed. You'll sleep deeper. And also your body can perform autophagy, but it really kind of kicks in around the 18-hour mark. So what some people do for longevity is they actually just, take a day a month where they don't eat anything. Some really hardcore people do it 1 day a week. With just juices and things like that. But you want your cells to be able to repair and remove accumulated toxins, but you also don't want to keep feeding your body more and more and more and more toxins, because that's not going to help you with the aging process either. So be mindful about your food choices, but you don't have to be perfect. If you have too many toxins building up in your cell, which come from lifestyle factors and come from food choices, you can actually permanently alter the genes. So the cell can't repair itself. This, unfortunately, can happen with the neurons in the brain because they have very slow turnover rates. So the healthier you eat, the more raw, healthy, plant-forward foods you have, the more diversity in your diet, the more nutrient-rich soil your food is coming from, the more you'll be able to perform better autophagy and better cell turnover so you age slower. Fasting is really awesome too to get those IGF-1 levels down. Women of childbearing age, do this with caution. You don't need to be fasting, certainly not the intermittent fasting way with lots of coffee, lots of caffeine. That doesn't work for everybody. But if you're healthy and you've got good, stable blood sugar, once in a while, there's nothing wrong with doing a juice fast or a water fast. This is evidence-based, but check in with yourself and see if that's the right thing for you. And the healthier your diet is and the more balanced your blood sugar is going into this, the easier time you will have. IGF-1 is linked to longevity. It manages the effects of growth hormone within the body. So dairy products, again, right? They overstimulate. IGF-1, not good for your blood sugar and not good for longevity either. So one of my best nutrition tips I give most people is cut the dairy products and the high protein diets. What's bad for your blood sugar is bad for your telomeres. It's bad for the aging process. Those are the little caps on the end of your DNA that can kind of tell you how well you're aging, how old you are on an internal level. So you don't want to be eating a super, super high protein, super high fatty diet. Also, common sense, but sometimes it's really important to understand just how bad these foods are. Because sometimes we look at the junk food here and we're like, oh, well, it's just some calories. I'll go to the gym tomorrow. I'll work it off. But we're ignoring the effect on our DNA and our telomeres of the toxicity from these ultra processed foods, from these terrible cooking oils that they were cooked in, what this is doing, not only to our blood sugar and to our skin, but what it's doing to our brains in the aging process. For collagen, of course, you don't want to be eating those junk foods. I love to take collagen support. I love to eat a collagen supporting diet. Things like cryotherapy, ice bath, and intense cold, it's actually really good for collagen production. So anyone who's in Canada in the winter, you can actually go outside, not for too long, and you get a free collagen boost. So don't be afraid to run outside and be cold for a little bit. And vitamin C as well. Antioxidants, super important for the brain. These will combat oxidative stress and they'll also help your brain to age a little bit slower. We need antioxidants and our skin needs them as well. We also need vitamin C. It's a key nutrient to prevent decline of the brain and aging. It prevents depression, anxiety, and Alzheimer's, not exclusively, but it's a really, really key factor in those different conditions. So these are whole foods. This is how you get vitamin C and amino acids that will help you produce a lot of collagen on top of your diet. So if you look at that list, I listed all of the foods. So adult women need, depending on your needs, I think about the RDA is a little bit lower. I think about 90 milligrams a day of vitamin C. And this explains like where you can get it from. And you can also get it from Superfoods, which is what I love to do because it just supports, but you want to combine this, right? You want to make sure that your diet is really, really high in vitamin C and amino acids, and that will help you produce really, really good collagen so your skin ages a little bit slower. You want to avoid really fatty cuts of meat. So that's things like bacon, bologna, sausage, hot dogs, fried meats, especially fried chicken, things like that. They produce so many toxic compounds, and the high fatty cuts are so bad for your blood sugar and they are not good for the aging process. Superfoods, I use this word a lot. So just a definition of what it is. It's just a food that has a lot of nutrients and antioxidants and benefits compared to a non-beneficial food. So there's a lot of controversy of like, what is a superfood? That term doesn't even mean anything. It just means it has a lot of nutrients in it. So per calorie, you're getting more bang for your buck, basically. Most people think of like berries and citrus, which I love, and they're great, but spices, don't neglect spices. Put spices on your food, turmeric lattes, put some clove and cinnamon in there. Things like oregano on Italian cooking, throw your mixed Italian spices in there, some basil, some parsley. That's actually a really good way to add antioxidants. Same with dark, colorful foods. See the connection with antioxidants? You can actually see these beautiful pigments and they're so good for anti-aging. So acai berries, tart cherry juice. I love tart cherry juice concentrate before bed. That's another one that I always talk about that's super evidence-based, because the tart cherry juice concentrate helps your body produce more melatonin so you sleep better. And also it's full of antioxidants, which are so good for your skin, and it's low sugar as well. So it's really good for blood sugar. And this checklist here. So to glow, I got this from skinanddiet.com. I thought it was a really good summary of everything discussed today. So stop the sugar spikes and your skin will glow. So you want to eat the right carbs. So power carbs that have fiber, protein, and antioxidants. So whole grains, beans, lentils, chickpeas. You want to eat the right amount. So portion sizes are important. When animals want to be fattened up for meat, unfortunately, it's very sad, but what is the diet that they give them, right? They don't let cows go out and eat grass. That would be their natural diet. They'd be a lot leaner. They pump them up on grains, GMO corn, GMO wheat, GMO soy, which is in such a processed form that it changes quite a lot of the chemical makeup. So that causes these animals to gain a lot of weight. They're overloading them on the grain. So if you're on a weight loss diet, you want to do less grains and more of the greens and the fruit and the vegetables and things like that, and the pulses, the seeds. And if you're a man trying to bulk up a little bit, you might go a little bit more into the quinoa or the black rice, which are two of my favorites. Fill up on fiber. So I mentioned 40 grams a day. The average American is getting 15. So 40 grams a day of fiber. Really, really, really impactful. You'll feel and look a lot better, and your gut bacteria will love you. Start adding fiber to your diet now, and you'll be ready for January's gut health crash course. Then really balanced meals. So some carbs, some proteins, some fats, like, some avocado in there, some, maybe some quinoa, like that picture I showed, some greens, and avoiding the sugar bombs. Cookies, cakes, things like that. Doesn't mean you have to completely eliminate those. You can make them yourself, but you can use foods like dates. Dates make really, really good sweeteners. You just dehydrate them, and you can, you rehydrate them. If you want to use them for baking, you can soak them in a little bit of water if they're really dried. So you can use dried food as well to sweeten baked goods. They make good toppings, dried mangoes, things like that. So you want to limit the sugar bomb from dessert, but it doesn't mean you can't enjoy delicious things anymore. There's so many healthy options. There's great recipe websites out there that can teach you how to make healthier versions of stuff that still have fiber, that won't spike your blood sugar. Maybe vegan cheesecake instead of one with dairy, made of cashews, that can taste really good, and you won't have that IGF-1 risk. And avoiding, of course, your white bread, white pasta, things like that. Doesn't mean you can never eat those foods, but you really want to eat them in balance. So in moderation, and you want to really, really focus on a beautiful, colorful diet, and that will protect your collagen, and that will also protect your brain as you age. So, okay, that is this month's webinar. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I hope it was helpful, and always taking feedback about what to do for next month's topic. So I'm going to go and see the questions. Okay, will the slides be available? This will be on the BioXcelerator YouTube, so you can watch it there. Okay, Mike said that's why nature doesn't pair these things together in natural food. I don't remember what I was talking about, but I'm sure it was like the processed foods or the burgers or something like that. But yeah, a lot of these combinations are not found in nature. Really, human beings are meant to eat a much more simple diet, but unfortunately, a lot of our food is devoid of nutrients, right? Like we have to eat a bunch of oranges to get the same vitamin C, vitamin A that our grandparents would have gotten. It's really unfair. It's due to low soil quality. So that's why I do really advocate for superfoods and for supplementing your diet and being really, really mindful of where your food is coming from. Try to go to farmers markets, support local. Something that is local to you is so much better than something that has traveled across the world. So try to eat in season whenever you can. It just has more enzymes, more nutrients. Got to reverse years of neural programming. Yes, exactly. It's absolutely wild how our brains are so trained to do certain things. That's why change can be so hard, but it's not because there's something wrong with you or you don't have willpower. You just literally don't have those dendrites in your brain yet. So you just have to create them. It just takes a little bit of time, but anybody can do this. It's just It's practice over and over and over again. And it's also positive self-talk, because let's say you try to have a green juice every morning and you get busy and you forget and you're like, oh my gosh, I never remembered to have my green juice. And you start getting angry at yourself. You're also creating new neural pathways that when you forget, you get angry with yourself. Instead, say, okay, well, I had it 4 days this week. I'm doing pretty well. That's great. I've nourished my body. I'm getting a lot of nutrients in. You have to do the positive self-talk with all of the actual changes you're making, because you also will train your brain to think positively about these changes and to not see them as such a burden and such a difficult thing that's causing you all this subconscious stress. Oh, this explains why I used to experience UTIs all the time, dehydration. Yeah, that's the case with a lot of women, dehydration, and also just lack of diversity in the microbiome. UTIs, or urinary tract infections, are really common in women who took birth control, because birth control acts like a mild antibiotic and it wipes out the diversity in your gut bacteria. It's not as bad as antibiotics, but if you're taking it in small doses over the years, it plays a role there and it can be really impactful. So yeah, UTIs are usually a combination of dehydration and low diversity of the microbiome. So when you nourish your microbiome, that will make a really big difference too. EPA and DHA, yes, we nourish the brain with our omegas. Telomere length and life expectancy aging would be a great webinar. I did one actually in the summer, why we age. That one is on the BioXcellerator YouTube as well. Yes, Cora, I also love tart cherry juice. It's so good. Non-GMO organic barley. It's the Hemsworth Thor key food behind his bulking. I didn't know that. Wow. Organic barley. I love barley grass powder. I think that's such a good one. Okay, I think I got all the questions. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. This will be on our YouTube if you want to go back and watch it later. As always, send me any suggestions for next month's topic, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.